Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have to say I've been following a lot of the commentary online and in the media about this bill, and unfortunately, there's been a pretty massive misinformation campaign about this bill by the right-wing media and right-wing social media influencers. It is tragically a massive and well-orchestrated campaign to erase trans children, to pretend they don't exist, to suppress them, which honestly is no different than the suppression that we have seen for centuries, the suppression of gay and lesbian kids. And we need to remember that all the arguments that we hear against so many parts of this bill, and against acknowledging the existence of trans kids, those have all been made against gay and lesbian kids. That you can change them, that it's not real, that it's a phase, that they're confused, that it's a mental health problem. Let's not pretend for a second that the attacks on and the attempts to erase trans kids, let's not pretend for a second that that is not also an attack on gay and lesbian kids. It absolutely is. I want to thank the author for introducing this bill and for leading on this bill and for persevering on this bill, even despite the just horrific personal attacks that have been launched against her. The author is someone with deep lived experience who knows exactly what she is talking about. I also just want to note that in the right-wing media, there has been, at times, an erasure of the author's leadership. There are articles that leave her name out entirely and only mention my name, even though I am not leading on this bill. I am not the lead author of this bill. They either minimize her role or erase it entirely. Why would you do that? We should ask ourselves why they would do that. Because it benefits their narrative that this is about perversion and harming kids. It benefits that narrative to say that the bill is somehow introduced by a gay man who doesn't have children. Using photos of me from Folsom Street Fair. I like those photos, but why choose those photos over other photos? It benefits their narrative way more than acknowledging that the author who is leading on this bill is a straight woman with kids, including a trans kid who knows exactly what she's talking about. It's straight up homophobia, and it's disrespectful to the author. This bill is not about gender affirming care, but that has been raised over and over and over again, online and here today. So I want to say a few things. There's this narrative that people are somehow like going to stealing kids and forcing them to have gender affirming care. There's also this narrative that a massive number of people transition and regret it. These narratives are false. In California, gender affirming care other than counseling can only happen if a parent consents to it. The age of consent, if the kid is not emancipated, is 18. So when kids in California receive gender-affirming care, it is overwhelmingly with the consent and the support of their parents. We also know from studies that the vast, vast majority of trans people, including kids who transition, do not regret their transition. There was a review of 27 studies involving almost 8,000 teens and adults who transitioned, and 1% regretted their decision. Of course, for anyone who does regret, we should support them, and they should have access to all of the health care that they need, but that should not deprive the other 99% from receiving health care. We also know that gender affirmation and gender affirming care dramatically benefits the mental health of trans kids. There was an NIH study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, quote, transgender and non-binary youth sustained improvement in depression and anxiety over 2 years after starting treatment with gender-affirming hormones. A study in the Journal of the American Medical Association about youth 13 to 20, those receiving care had a 60% lower odds of depression and 73% lower odds of suicidality compared to youth who hadn't received cares. And we know there are various studies that show that trans youth with supportive parents have significantly lower risk of suicidality. Trans kids with supportive parents have significantly lower risk of attempting suicide. People, I think some have been led to believe that this bill somehow applies to every family, and that we heard it at the beginning, that this complete misrepresentation of the bill, that the cops are going to come into people's homes and grab their kids because you're not affirming enough. This bill is about divorce proceedings and custody. That's what this is about. This bill is about situations where the family court is already involved, where you are already in court because you have kids, you're getting a divorce, and the court has the job of deciding custody, visitation, etc. Where the court is already scrutinizing every aspect of the family's life. Courts consider a huge number of factors when they decide custody and visitation. Many, many factors. All this bill does is clarify that among all of those many, many other factors, that affirmation of the child's gender should be considered. Because we know that gender affirmation has mental health benefits. And we know that having supportive parents makes it less likely that that child will attempt to kill themselves. Are we really going to say that those facts are somehow not relevant to a divorce and custody proceeding? Of course, the court should take those into account, and that's why this bill is important, and I'm happy to move the bill.